So if you've been following the playoffs, you probably hear a lot of coaches talk about doing what each team did to get them there and doing what they do best and establishing their game plan. But I think that part of playoffs, there's a bit of a chess match, and you look for a little opportunity here and there to create a subtle advantage or create as much leverage to try to exploit maybe something smaller in the other team system or their tendencies, and this was a really good example of that. I was actually in the building for this one, so I saw this live, and a couple things to notice here, but I'll hit play, run through the goal. You see that the Kings are on the power play. They're trying to get back into the game. They're trying to, in the last few minutes of the game, making a strong push. You see Panarin, it works through him as it usually does. He's looking for this play. If I pause it here, you look at Adrian Kempe. It's hard to tell a little bit, but he goes there almost immediately after the face-off. So this is clearly something that they've discussed and they've tried to address and take advantage of. You see Panarin looks at just a great seam play down to that backside. But I'll back it up a little bit and get into it in a little bit more detail. So there's a few different things that I want to point out. In terms of Colorado's formation, you see that they're lined up in a diamond, and that's how they've killed penalties in the past. I believe that they were one of the first teams to actually transition to something like this, and it's difficult because there's such a big emphasis on flank shots and one-timers, and this was their somewhat remedy of trying to eliminate some of those high-end guys that are available on that weak side to prevent those backdoor plays. But so you see that, but if you take a look at Brent Burns here in front and Nikushkin off the side, now these guys are in a tough spot. Now inherently in a penalty kill, you have one less guy, right? So that's hard in itself. So you can't just lock up man on man. You have to play zones. You have to take away seams with your stick, and that's what they're doing. So if you take a look at Nikushkin specifically right now, he's got a lot on his plate. He's worried about this one-timer in Byfield, but then he also has to worry about Kempe down low. So you see him going back and forth. You see Panarin, if you back that up, he's looking too. This is something, and Kempe is just set up backside to just get either a foot or a tip on this on his stick. Panarin's looking in this one, doesn't really see it. Nikushkin drops down. But the problem is that the second one, when they end up scoring the goal, Panarin does a good job of trying to sell that seam over to Byfield, and that forces Nikushkin to honor it. But then you also have to take notice of the positioning of Kopitar and Burns, and he's just waiting for Kopitar to maintain that inside positioning, because if he does that, then all of a sudden that seam through the diamond is going to be there on the backside. So I hit play there. You see this little gap here, because like I mentioned before, that teams are and guys are just so good on the power play, and on this flank, it's almost a surefire goal if this is able to go over to him, because that lane's there. There's traffic in front. It's hard for the goalie to track, and it's in the back of your net. So Nikushkin drives out because Panarin does a good job of deception and selling that, and then that's what opens up this lane on the backside. Here's another really good angle at it. You see Kopitar, he's in front. He's trying to take away the goalie's eyes. You see that little pump fake that Panarin gave. But again, you see Nikushkin here. He fires out on that one-timer. And then Kopitar is maintaining that inside body positioning, because when he is on the inside, then that's really difficult for Burns to either get his stick or his body over for that lane. This is a much better angle, and you see where that lane is, and Kempe's just ready to set up to tap this in. Here's an even better angle to see what Panarin is seeing. And you just see that lane as I move that forward, that lane open up down to Kempe. You see Kempe set up. Now, he doesn't care whether this hits his any part of his body, his skates, his stick. But this is clearly something that they've noticed in the way that Colorado kills their penalties, and something that they could exploit, a little gap and a little seam in their diamond, and it was really fun to watch. And again, this is a chess match. This is what's fun about playoffs, to see the little adjustments that each team is forced to make to try to create a little bit of a leverage. But this ended up being a big goal in the game, allowed LA to kind of pull their goalie and try to get back in this game. Unfortunately, they end up losing, but it was a really fun one to watch, and I was happy to be there and to be able to see it.